Hello and welcome, everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are here today on traditional Treaty 7 territory, and we are honored to be joined by First Nations leaders from across Alberta. With us today is Chief Roy Whitney of the Tsuut'ina Nation, Chief Ori Crowfoot of the Siksika Nation, Councillor Martin Heavyhead of the Kainai Nation, who is also the chairperson of the Blood Tribe Department of Health, and Charles Weaselhead, former Kainai Chief and Treaty 7 Grand Chief and Vice Chairperson of the Blood Tribe Department of Health. Thank you all for coming and joining us here to talk about the important issues of mental health and addiction. Also here today is our United Conservative Party leader, Danielle Smith. And lastly, we are joined by several family members and young people who have experienced life in addiction. We will have the privilege of hearing some of their stories shortly. This election is about choosing the Alberta we want moving forward. Albertans have an opportunity to choose to continue on a path of hope, wellness, and recovery with the United Conservative Party, or to return to the multiple failed policies of the past with the NDP. Right now, there are far too many Albertans suffering the consequences of untreated addiction and mental health issues, and the death and destruction these challenges bring. And at the same time, because these issues have been left untreated for too long, our communities are suffering from the social and public safety consequences they bring. From our large urban communities in Calgary and Edmonton to our smallest villages and towns, there isn't anywhere that has been left untouched by the chaos of addiction and the impact of untreated mental illness. Our United Conservative Party has a strong vision for the future. A re-elected United Conservative government will take a fair, firm, and compassionate approach to these issues. Fair to the communities, families, and businesses suffering the consequences of addiction, drug use, and untreated mental illness. Firm with the need to focus on public safety, and compassionate to those struggling with the challenges who need treatment and support to save their lives and recover. I'd like to invite United Conservative leader Danielle Smith forward now to share the next steps of our plan to improve public safety by addressing the challenges of mental health and addiction.
Thank you. I see one of our friends in the media was having trouble with audio. You good? All right. Well, thank you, Nick, for that introduction. Albertans have been blessed that this province has been able to emerge out of the pandemic with the strongest job growth in the country. But the sad reality is that despite the opportunity created by a booming economy, Alberta is also grappling with the effects of untreated mental health issues and the ongoing addiction crisis that jurisdictions are experiencing all over North America. Addiction touches almost everyone. People struggling with addiction are on our streets, and no family is being spared. Each and every one is someone's son, daughter, husband, wife, mother, or father. They are our fellow Albertans who are caught in the grips of a deadly and destructive illness that is destroying their potential and endangering their lives. They all deserve the chance to change their lives for the better. Far too often, this addiction crisis has led to social disorder and out-of-control violence that has seemed to have gotten worse. It is the #1 job of a government to ensure that people are safe when they walk down the street. They shouldn't have to look over their shoulders in their own communities. People have a right not to be randomly grabbed, punched, kicked, or spit upon, or heaven forbid, stabbed. Nobody taking public transit should fear getting thrown onto the tracks. And kids should be able to go to school without being exposed to the secondhand smoke of deadly and dangerous hard drugs. People laying on the streets, a danger to themselves and others who just happen to be walking by. Albertans want and deserve safety, and they want members of their communities to be well. Last week, I announced the United Conservative Party's Safe Streets Action Plan, a number of measures to improve public safety. Part of that is more police. Part of that is preventing the illegal drug and gun trades. Part of that is enabling better tracking of those out on bail. But we also have to ensure that we give people who are caught in the throes of addiction the opportunity to get treatment and support so they can achieve their potential and so what's happening on the streets doesn't continue. When we look at what's happening in our communities with addiction and the crime and social disorder it causes, it's sad, it's heartbreaking. We need to have an honest conversation about how to help people who suffer from mental illness and addiction, especially when it crosses the line and impacts other people's right to be safe in our province. United Conservatives have a clear plan to address these challenges, and we will put the resources in place to deal with it. When the UCP government arrived in office, the publicly funded addiction care system was capable of treating 19,000 people a year. We added 10,000 additional fully funded treatment spaces. The NDP was charging user fees of $40 per day for people to access our publicly funded addiction treatment system. The United Conservative government eliminated that fee. This means that Alberta's addiction treatment system now provides detox treatment and recovery services for up to 29,000 Albertans every year, fully funded and free of charge. While our drive to build a world-class addiction care system is recognized around the world, it's being called the Alberta model, we're nowhere near done. We must assertively drive forward with these plans. And that's why a re-elected United Conservative government will build over 700 new publicly funded addiction treatment beds across Alberta with 11 new treatment centres. We call these centres recovery communities with free admission to any Albertan who needs it. The first of these recovery communities opens this week in Red Deer, with one opening in Lethbridge this summer, with more to come in communities like Calgary, Edmonton, and Grand Prairie. Too many First Nations governments are struggling with addiction crisis as well. Too many of our First Nations friends are suffering, and I will not stand idly by while the federal government does little to help. I want to be a strong advocate, and you have my commitment that we will be there for each other and we will walk this road together. We are also proud that a re-elected United Conservative government will build 4 of these recovery communities in partnership with First Nations, including the Kainai Nation, the Enoch Cree Nation, the Siksika Nation, and the Tsuut'ina Nation. These partnerships with First Nations are an essential step forward in our shared journey of reconciliation. We are counting on you to show us the way in using trauma-informed and land-based healing. Together, we can be an example of real healing and reconciliation for all nations in all of Canada to witness. First Nations governments are struggling, as I mentioned as well. I want to thank Chief Crowfoot, Chief Whitney, Chief Thomas, former Treaty 7 Grand Chief Weaselhead, and Councillor Heavyhand for your partnership and your leadership. Too many of your members are suffering. And I will not stand idly by while the federal government does little to help. More must also be done for mental health. And that's why a re-elected United Conservative government will address the lack of inpatient support for mental illness in Alberta by building 5 new 75-bed mental wellness centres that will provide a total of 375 new inpatient mental health beds. Like recovery communities for addiction, mental wellness centres will provide long-term treatment programs that address mental illness and provide mental health support for those pursuing recovery from mental health challenges. Because United Conservatives know the importance of providing supports for those struggling with both their mental health and their addiction. It's why we have increased the funding and priority of both over the past 4 years and especially this last year. The UCP has created many opportunities for those who are unwell to seek voluntary treatment with no barriers. And voluntary treatment will always remain our top priority. On the other hand, when people commit crimes, they should be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Having an illness does not absolve anyone of their criminal responsibility, but there are people who are suffering, people who are an imminent danger to themselves and others, who need a more assertive intervention to ensure they get better, to save their life, and to keep our communities safe. I just need to pause a moment. re-elected United Conservative government will develop and pass the Compassionate Intervention Act to ensure those gripped by addiction get help, get healthy, and have the opportunity to have a new life. The Act would allow for a family member, doctor, psychologist, or police officer to make a petition to a specially appointed non-criminal judge to issue a treatment order. The court would be able to divert an addict who is in imminent danger to themselves or others to treatment instead of jail. This step would be a last resort in order to save lives and to prevent the overdose deaths, assaults, and attacks happening in Alberta as a result of drug use. If someone is an imminent danger to themselves or others, we will do whatever we can to save their life and help them get better. And that begins with getting them out of harm's way. We need to ensure Albertans don't have to worry about random acts of violence when they're walking down the street or taking transit. This is about saving lives and keeping our communities safe. The Compassionate Intervention Act will allow us to save the lives of addicts who are at risk of dying from an overdose and to protect those who are at risk of being randomly attacked in our communities. This is actual compassion. It's not looking the other way and hoping for the best. Rather, it is, and it's not about hiding the issue. Rather, it's addressing the challenges and confronting the problem head on. Our Conservative Party has a bold vision and plan to address the mental health and addiction challenges that we face. We stand for safe, effective, and accessible treatment for all. We stand for helping those who are struggling to achieve recovery. We stand for achieving life-saving services on demand when they are needed. We stand for partnerships with First Nations and walking this journey together. We stand for a parent's right to save the life of their child. We stand for safe streets and accountability. We stand for safe and drug-free transit, and we stand for a functioning justice system. Now, the NDP has a plan also, but they don't want to talk about their plan during this election. They don't want to talk about their plan to distribute and supply drugs to addicts, just like in Vancouver, at taxpayer expense. They don't want to talk about their plan to put supervised consumption sites in communities all around Alberta. They don't want to talk about their time in government when they charge people $40 per day user fees to access care. They don't want to talk about their candidates wanting to defund the police. They don't want to talk about decriminalizing all hard drugs like we're seeing in British Columbia. And that's why they are on the record, that's what they are on the record for supporting, and that's what they will do. They do not want to talk about it right now. So I challenge all of you to ask them. The answer to addiction and public safety is not more drugs or ignorance or looking the other way and hoping for the best. It's stepping forward with compassion, intervention, treatment, and recovery, while also having zero tolerance for actual crime. The choice couldn't be clearer. The United Conservative Party believes people can change. We believe some people just need an opportunity and a hand up to have a new life. Some people need a change to turn their lives around. And we believe that Albertans should be safe on their streets, in their communities, in their homes, and when riding transit. The United Conservative Party has a plan for mental health and addictions and public safety that is fair, firm, and compassionate. We will focus on prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery, and will do whatever it takes to keep Albertans safe. Thank you. I'd now like to ask if any of our chiefs would like to say a word. Chief Crooklyn?
Okay, Mr. Wanako, Nukske stomach. I'd like to thank the Premier for her words. I've met the Premier and I've worked with the Premier, and I will say they have a good action plan. You know, we're working with the province of Alberta to make Siksika safe. This is not an Indigenous issue. It's not a Siksika issue. Look on the stage. This is an Alberta worldwide pandemic, and you know, every day we have people from Siksika and other First Nations that are passing away. People from Calgary, Red Deer, every city in Alberta are passing away every day. So we cannot idly sit by, as the Premier mentioned, and just hope this goes away. We have to meet this head on. And you know, we're in collaboration as we speak now of trying to develop partnerships where we can work together, not just for the benefit of Siksika, but the benefit of all Alberta. So I just wanted to say thank you, Premier, for you and your team and the work you've done to help make Alberta a safer place. So thank you.
Premier, I'd like to thank you for your forward thinking that your government is talking about here today. We all struggle in our own communities, no matter where we're from, in Alberta, with mental health and with addictions. And now's the time that this government has the foresight in leading other provinces in Canada, other governments in North America, and demonstrating that they really truly want to be engaged in supporting and helping the parents, the siblings of people who have addictions, as well as ensuring that it's a safe place for us all to live. So with that, Premier and your government, I truly appreciate your announcement here today, and thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Chief. Thanks, Chief Whitney. I don't know, Chief Weaselhead, if you wanted to add now, or I might call on you a little bit later. You want to?
Martin Heavyhead here for Chief Roy Fox of the Blood Reserve. So on behalf of Chief Roy Fox, the Blood Reserve, the Blood Tribe Department of Health, I want to say that I think this is the third time we've declared a state of local emergency in regard to drugs. Back in 2018, we declared a state of local emergency. Again in 2020, and again in 2023. And it's an ongoing problem that had been put onto the back burner because of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. But now we have to deal with it again, and we're trying to deal with it as best as we can. The government of Alberta had come to us some time ago, and we've been working with them for quite a while now. And we have a detox center that's doing well. Some numbers are, in the last 6 months, I think we had 186 people come in, and about 100 of those people have gone out and they've passed the detox requirements. Some of them are onto other drugs like Suboxone, and something is being done. You know, there's always hope, and I think we're fully behind the recovery method rather than the harm reduction theme. So we're doing our best. We're trying to get as much funding as possible to continue the fight against these drugs. It's a really big problem for us, but we're trying to meet it head on. Thank you very much.
Okay, Nistonako ka Tatsukipui. I want to acknowledge our Premier. We appreciate the support that she has given to our community, the Kainai community, in investing a recovery community for us. You know, I think what the chiefs have said earlier, we cannot wait any further at this moment. You know, with the tribe, the design phase is completed for us. Our construction manager has been appointed. And so we are moving forward as quickly as we can. As we speak, our young people and our people that are inflicted with addictions are dying left and right. Being one of the largest communities in Canada, we have a large number of our young people that are in addiction and that need the help and support of our people, our community. And I really want to thank the government of today and the Premier for helping us come together with a plan that's going to work for our people. So again, thank you very much for the support that's been awarded to us, and also to the First Nations communities in Treaty 6, 7, and 8. Thank you.
All right, we're now going to hear some remarks from parents as well as those who are in recovery. Let's go to Sierra Brady first.
Good morning, everyone. I am the mom of someone who struggles with addiction. My son is alive today due to assertive intervention when he could no longer make decisions to keep himself safe. By the age of 17, he had been admitted to mental health wards 14 times, stayed at 6 group homes and a court-ordered stay at the Safe House. He had overdosed multiple times as addiction took control of his and our lives. In the 2 weeks prior to attending treatment, our hearts said goodbye to him twice as he was resuscitated and placed on life support. The pain was unbearable. His addiction made him a danger to himself. Despite everyone's best efforts, his struggles were beyond treatment and he was sicker than the system could handle. After 7 terrifying years of consuming worry for us, his loving family, not knowing daily if he was alive or dead, intervention was our only option. It is hard to understand the anguish of this journey until you love somebody who struggles with addiction. It took its toll on all of our family. It should never have come to this. Ours is just one of many stories that these families behind me have suffered through. For all of us and many more in our community, intervention was the solution. We are the lucky ones. With access to assertive intervention and the care it provided, it gave our family hope in a way that we never thought possible on the desperate days of this journey, when we did not know our next steps. It has, without question, saved our son. It has provided a space where it was safe for him to be vulnerable with his pain, and in turn, to recover from his addiction with dignity, something I believe everyone deserves. Today, we proudly watch him become the healthiest version of himself, living in recovery. Intervening with the right treatment not only saved him, it saved our family, because we never would have recovered from losing him. I share our story today for anyone that has been touched by addiction. I want you to know that there can be a solution from the dark days of watching loved ones suffer. The success rate of recovery based on compassion is astounding. It has given our families opportunities that we never thought were possible, and we are truly grateful. Today, I stand here with the village because our children deserve the power of our unity. Our backgrounds and stories may be different, but each of our loved ones is equally deserving of a full life. Families should not have to suffer like this and feel ashamed while already dealing with heartbreak. It's time for loved ones to have a say, and for those struggling to be given the dignity to find their true selves again. It's time to restore our communities to sanity. It's time for change. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Desiree Pressing.
I'm here today to share my family's story also. It's a story of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of intervention and long-term drug treatment. It is a story that hits close to home. It involves my 2 daughters, one of which is here today. They have triumphed over addiction and emerged as shining examples of courage and strength. Addiction is a merciless adversary, and it doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anyone. And it tears apart families and it shatters dreams. When my daughters fell into the grip of addiction, our lives were consumed by fear and despair. I witnessed the devastating effects it had on their physical and mental health, their relationships, their dreams for their future. I felt absolutely terrified and lost while navigating the mental health system. The Band-Aid, short-term, quick-fix solutions only aggravated the situation. My daughters were literally dying in front of my eyes. No matter how dark it got, including a suicide attempt and multiple overdoses, my girls were still convinced that they were in control of their drug use and simply weren't ready to stop yet. The disease of addiction had completely hijacked their minds. I felt absolutely desperate for a solution, and I knew that I had to intervene. Every morning that I opened their bedroom doors, I was braced for the very real possibility that they might have overdosed. I know that my daughters would not be alive today if it wasn't for a judge granting me an emergency order to place my child into treatment. Today, I'm proud to say that my daughters have emerged from the depths of addiction as resilient warriors. They are living proof that intervention and long-term drug treatment can lead to incredible personal growth and lasting recovery. They spend much of their time giving back to their community, and Amelie now works as an addiction counselor for youth in treatment. Their journey has taught us invaluable lessons. It has shown us the importance of understanding acceptance and unwavering support in the face of addiction. It has reminded us that recovery is not an individual effort, but a collective endeavor that requires love and dedication and a community willing to step into someone's addiction. As I look at my daughters now, I see two strong, vibrant young women who have reclaimed their lives. Their journey continues as they embrace each new day with gratitude, purpose, and a profound appreciation for the second chance that they have been given. We've all come to know that addiction is not a moral failure. It is an illness, and my girls just needed to be helped long enough to remember who they really were again. I'd like to acknowledge that we are sharing the stage with these chiefs and elders. I recognize your long-standing history with what it means to bring the suffering members of your community into a circle of wellness so that they can remember who they are again because of your compassion. It's not about a quick fix. It's about the long game, and it's the courageous and fiercely loving thing to do. Thank you for going first and helping us to remember the ancient wisdom of your people again. I am not so special, and our windfall of being granted an order for long-term treatment shouldn't be either. Every parent out there deserves to have the ability to save their child's life, no matter what it takes. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you so much.
If anyone has some Kleenex, I think there's a few of us up here who might need it. Now let's talk to Plaza, or Abby Plaza.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Abby, and I'm an addict living in recovery. I stand before you today as a living testament to the power and the importance of a family's intervention. My family saved my life, and I am forever grateful for it. Before my parents intervened, I was struggling with addiction for a total of 6 years. It had started with the use of marijuana at 12 years old and quickly progressed to using methamphetamines and opioids at the age of 14. I was lost, alone, and hopeless. I experienced multiple overdoses, suicide attempts, trips to the police station, and psych ward. These visits were short and provided only a temporary solution. I had hit rock bottom, and I didn't know how to get back up. I truly believed I wasn't going to make it past 16 years of age. I hated anyone or anything that stood between myself and my drug use, and I was a danger to myself and others, living in a world of darkness without a way out. Then something miraculous happened. At the age of 16, my family finally experienced enough pain and had the courage to step into my addiction and get a court order that placed me into detox before entering a long-term treatment program. My parents were scared for my life and had no other choice. I made multiple stops in the road before this, and this final intervention saved my life. It allowed them to show me the love and support I needed to overcome my addiction and gave both them and myself the tools and the support to recover. I'm proud to say that I'm now 19 years old with 3 years of sobriety, attending school and working towards a degree in nursing. I have a great relationship with my family and friends, and I can now live life on life's terms without the use of drugs and alcohol. Without them making the decision to intervene, I believe I would be dead. I'm here today sharing a bit of my story because I know that there's plenty of people out there that are struggling, hopeless, praying for a solution. I am living hope, and I am so grateful for the opportunity that was given to me. Because of their actions and because of the hope that others had for me, I am here today, standing before you, forever grateful and alive. Thank you.
And we'll now hear from Amelie Pressey.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amelie, and I have the disease of addiction. I'm here today to be an example of the impact that court-ordered intervention can have on a life. Growing up, my home life was incredibly chaotic. To escape it, at the age of 12, I started using drugs. I quickly became addicted. My grades began slipping, and I found myself in legal trouble. The addiction had taken over my life to the point where I was on the brink of death. By the time I was 15, I was overdosing every other week and had no regard for my own life. Thankfully, my mother intervened and got a court order for me to be sent to detox. I then went into a treatment program focused on abstinence, which ultimately saved my life. Without this intervention, I'm certain that I would be dead. Today, I am full of gratitude that my family was able to step in the way of my disease. I live an incredibly rewarding life that would not be possible without this court-ordered intervention.
And we'll now hear finally, this will be the last speaker, from Earl Thiessen.
Well, if you want a quick window into recovery, all you have to do is look behind me. I'm pleased to be here today to support this announcement by the UCP to take serious steps to address mental health and addiction. I've been in long-term recovery for 15 years after I spent 7 years homeless on the streets of Calgary and 20 in addiction. I would not be here today if it were not for the intervention and support of a provincial court judge. For me, this Compassionate Intervention Act means hope. Hope for families and communities bearing the impact of addiction. My wife and I are now raising my sister-in-law's baby after she lost her life to a fatal overdose. I'm a dad again, in a way nobody should expect to be. She left behind a 1-year-old baby and a teenage son. We knew she was in trouble with addiction, and we had no way to intervene. If this act had been in place then, she may still be alive today. I spoke with my mother-in-law and I asked her if I could speak about her daughter just a few days ago. She said, please do. We agreed that if sharing our family story helps one person choose to get their loved one help and save a life, then it is worth the pain our family has suffered. Many people are so entrenched in their addiction that they cannot consciously decide to get help. This act will provide a voice for the families that their loved ones cannot use. I am also thrilled that a re-elected United Conservative government will build new recovery communities in direct partnership with Indigenous nations. As an Indigenous person, I have been advocating for over a decade for more Indigenous-led treatment initiatives to provide healing and recovery for Indigenous people in Alberta. Overseeing Canada's largest peer and culturally supported recovery housing program and building Indigenous-led recovery communities will help support the full recovery-oriented system of care for our people. These initiatives will save lives, and I am proud to be here to support them as a person in recovery and as a person who has lost far too many friends and family to the illness of addiction. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I'll now pass it over to Becca, and we'll do question and answer.
Thanks, everybody. Before we get to the Q&A, if anybody needs a rest and you have to exit the stage, feel free to do that. I will ask the speakers to stick around because if there might be some questions that go to you. We'll head to Q&A. I'll start with the floor. One question, and anybody that spoke today is available for questions. Go ahead.
Sean Posler, Western Standard. Any thoughts on the constitutionality of the Compassionate Intervention Act and alternatively the constitutionality of legalizing drugs in Lower East Hastings?
Well, I would tell you that we already have a pathway to get treatment orders. As you can see, it applies to young people, and we would allow for this to apply to more. We want to make sure that we have an appropriate process so that it goes before a court and has to have a very high bar, that if a person is causing harm to themselves or others, rather than go to jail, they'll go into a treatment path. We think that this is exactly what we need to do to protect the life, liberty, and security of people, which is a charter value. When it comes to what they call safe supply, I would just point you to a recent article by Adam Zebo in the National Post, where he has documented very clearly what the impact is of giving powerful opioids in Vancouver. In Vancouver, the drug they're handing out, it's called hydromorphone. It's 5 times more powerful than heroin. Addicts are crushing it up and injecting it into their arms. They're getting major infections, and some of them are dying. And that is the alternative pathway. Rachel Notley has gone on the record saying she supports safe supply. That's what it means, is it means using taxpayer dollars to give hard drugs to individuals. They will either inject them and hurt themselves, or they'll go out and sell them so that they can get fentanyl. It increases the supply of unsafe, harmful, destructive, life-destroying, deadly drugs on the street. And that's the choice people have to make. Let's not sugarcoat it. We either go down a pathway where we continue the approach we've taken with the Alberta model, which is getting international attention, and it doesn't give up on people. It gets people into recovery and on that pathway, or we go the dark path of what we're seeing not only in Vancouver on the east side, but all down the west coast. I know what choice I would make. We can't go to that. We've got to go forward.
Next question, please.
Adam Sos for Rebel News. First of all, thanks all of you for your testimonies, very powerful stuff. There are people, whether in federal or provincial politics, who are happy to leave these people within the throes of addiction, and they're no doubt going to categorize what you're doing as sort of an attack on personal freedoms or as not compassionate. How do you respond to those allegations?
You know, just hearing the young girls here and their parents talking about, and our First Nations leadership, when people lose individual agency and they're not able to make decisions in their own interests and they're only looking at the next fix and they don't care whether they live or die, we've got to restore individual agency. We've got to restore the ability for them to be able to make decisions in their own interests to preserve their life. That's what this is about. And so I feel very confident that what we would be doing would be fully compliant with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms for life, liberty, and security of the person. Sir.
So I'm Mike Ellis. I worked the streets for over a decade. I look at the faces of some of these parents. I was that police officer that attended their homes where they were crying, saying they didn't know what to do. I've had mothers cry in my arms because they didn't know what to do with their children. Are we going to condemn a 12-year-old to a life of palliative care, and by giving them drugs, giving them a safe place to use these drugs? We have hope. This is what this offers, hope. Hope to these young kids, the kids that were back here, hope to these parents, so that those children will have something more than the continual and perpetual state of abuse. That's not a life, to be given drugs and then given a safe place to use them, and then given an naloxone kit, and then sent on their way, and then use the drugs again. That's what they're doing in Eastside Vancouver. I know that. I've been out there. And let's talk about this. These drugs are being diverted. We never talked about that. They're being diverted. And guess where they're being diverted to? The junior highs, the high schools, the post-secondaries. The only people benefiting from this are the drug dealers. The only people being disadvantaged by this is the rest of society, and quite frankly, the law enforcement community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Rachel Emanuel with True North. I wanted to actually ask one of the people in recovery a question, maybe Abby, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you for sharing your testimony today. Premier Smith has just spoken extensively about the constitutionality of this. I'm wondering what your response would be to someone who says that to force an addict into treatment is inhumane.
Yeah, I think for myself, I thought going into treatment, not under, obviously, my own will, was inhumane. But to be quite frank and honest, the only reason I thought that was because I wanted to continue doing what I was doing, which was using drugs, right? Like I said, I didn't want anyone or anything to get in the way of me and my drug use. And to be honest, I don't think any addict would want that, right? Because I mean, in addiction, it's a disease, it's a brain disease. It's a mental health issue. And I think for myself, and speaking for some other people here in recovery, I needed that intervention regardless of in the moment if I thought it was inhumane or not, because I know afterwards, after leaving treatment, after being recovered and becoming sane again, I was extremely grateful, and I know there's a lot of other people that were extremely grateful to be given that opportunity rather than saying, oh, well, they don't want the help, so you know, we're not going to help them, right? I don't think any addict necessarily wants the help, and that's even more reason why we need to give it to them. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi there, Aaron with Lavalor, Calgary. Given that we are talking about involuntary custody, will there be a mechanism in the Act for either individuals or lawyers to challenge the involuntary custody before they're placed into a program?
Well, let's talk about the treatment order. The approach that we want to take would be that we would go before a judge. So it would be a judicial order. There would, when you go before, it's a non-criminal judge that would issue the treatment order. And the court would have a choice to be able to divert an addict who's an imminent danger to themselves or others to treatment instead of jail. I think when a person gets to this point, there really is only a few pathways. There's jail, there's treatment, and there's continued addiction and possibly death. So I would say that because we are having this go through an appropriate process, there's a process that has already been established. What I heard from the parents is, why should they be the few lucky ones that managed to get this? Why shouldn't we, for all those who are facing a situation where there are harm to themselves or others, why wouldn't we have this option for a treatment order to be issued by a court in all cases? And that's what we'd be doing.
Tyson Fedor with CTV, and thank you everyone for sharing your stories today. Very moving. Leader Smith, a little off topic, but a bit on topic as well. As we know, the Prime Minister's in the province today in Edmonton visiting with the military in regards to the wildfire situation. I just wanted to know if you've had any direct conversations with him, if you were maybe invited to meet with him while he's here in the province, speaking about the wildfires and potentially even speaking about this with him as well, and see what the federal government could potentially do.
I have had a conversation with the Prime Minister. It was a lengthy one at the beginning of the wildfire crisis, and we went through the letter that we had written to him about all of the ways in which he'd be able to assist with that, and he's assisted us in everything that we've asked for. So I suspect that he's arriving just to be able to view things on the ground, because there are a number of things that the federal government is going to have to be called to do. Remember, our disaster recovery program kicks in at about $16 million worth of spending, and we cost share with the municipalities, and we cost share with the federal government. So I fully understand why he wants to see here and assess the damage and harm and get a sense of that himself. In addition, in Alberta, it's sadly the most impacted communities are First Nations communities. So Little Red River Cree Nation has 3,500 people evacuated, 108 homes lost, probably 1,000 families that were living in those, or 1,000 people living in those 108 homes that need to be repaired. Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation as well, 36 homes that have been lost. And there's additional evacuations that have happened in the last 24 hours. So I've already mentioned to the Prime Minister that his help will be needed on the rebuilding. So I'm glad he's here to see the situation for himself.
Hi folks. Adam with Global News. This announcement comes on the same day that the City of Calgary released their survey of voters. What are the issues that matter to them? Mental health and addictions being one of them, public safety, especially in the downtown core, another, and affordable housing, all kind of part of this kind of nuanced situation. So my question is, how does this fit into that continuum and to making sure folks have the help they need after treatment, affordable housing and things along those lines in response to what Calgarians say is on their minds in this election?
It absolutely is a continuum. It's why we've invested for the last 4 years in this recovery-oriented system of care. building recovery communities, increasing our treatment capacity, having the virtual opioid dependency program so people could get a replacement to hard drugs. I think somebody mentions the Suboxone. I understand that that's an injection that works for 30 days, gets people off of addiction. We have a 211 counseling line. These are the things that we have done, but we have seen that it is not enough to address the public safety issue. I would say that one of the things that we're observing, and Chief Dale McPhee in Edmonton does a really good job of talking about the 5 different types of individuals that we're seeing on the streets. And it goes the continuum to the guys who are committing the crime, who are involved in gang violence, who are dealing and getting people addicted, who are causing harm, who are committing crimes, all the way to the poor souls who are just suffering through addiction. And so we know we have to deal with both of those. That those who are victims of organized crime and gang activity and drug dealers, we want to make sure that they get an access point so that they can get in to get the treatment. But those who are committing harm against others, who are clearly not able to take care of themselves and causing harm to themselves, and those who are engaged in serious criminal activity, we have to take a public safety approach to that. We know as well that you have to be able to rebuild a person's recovery capacity, their social capital. This is what the recovery communities are all about, is that whether a person needs a month or 6 months or a year in one of our recovery communities, we have to reconnect them, get them clean from drugs, get them onto some kind of replacement therapy, get the mental health and serious therapy treatment that they need, reconnect them to family and friends, get job training skills so that not only are they able to take care of themselves when they get an apartment, they know how to grocery shop, they know how to cook, but they also are able to get a job and then also have the wraparound supports at the end. So I would say that when somebody has gotten to the point where they're homeless, on the street, in the throes of an addiction, overdosing multiple times, treatment is the first option. And then as they're in recovery, we start building the supports around them. We need to do all of it.
Hi, Ms. Smith. It's Scott Dipple from CBC Calgary. What would you say to Albertans who would have questions or be curious about why you think there are members of law enforcement in Alberta who should be arrested for enforcing public health orders?
Well, what I would say is that I know that the NDP are going to constantly be bringing up grainy videos of things that I've said in the past or other candidates have said, and the reason they are doing that is because Rachel Notley was the worst premier this province has ever had. They want to distract attention from the fact that 183,000 jobs were lost during her 4 years in government. People were leaving this province in droves. Investment was leaving this province in droves. Jobs were leaving this province in droves. We saw a massive increase in the amount of drug addiction, drug overdoses, and disorder on our streets. Our downtowns in both Calgary and Edmonton have been emptied out, causing major financial crises to our 2 cities. And on top of that, she racked up more debt than all previous Alberta premiers combined, getting us to a point where we're spending $3 billion a year on finance charges, which is preventing us from being able to use those dollars for the things that we care about. She's going to keep on doing this, and we're going to keep on talking about why we need to move Alberta forward and why we can't go back.
Thanks, everybody. That's all the time I have for today. Anybody with questions can reach out to my office. Thanks.